Thích Ca Mâu Ni. Thưa đại chúng,
2 hours. And now the young people, they'll just speak that in a few minutes. So the velocity of life seems to become faster. And if this we apply into our outlook, we see that our lifespan, looking at our lifespan, we see this is a big contradiction in our daily life. We want everything to happen really quickly. The speed has to catch up with the daily rhythm of our 24-hour daily life, and yet we want to enjoy the wealth of life. And so this seems contradictory, because when you have to live with such a fast rhythm, then the conditions for enjoyment, the conditions of happiness, your being able to be in touch with what's beautiful that the earth and the sky provide you, it will be limited. And if you look ahead, you see that you may die before you have a chance to enjoy life, because an in-breath and an out-breath may already change your life. And we are used to a very fast culture, always pursuing, always grasping. And one day when you want life, the life rhythm can slow down so that you can enjoy your older age, you can enjoy your presence in this life. And it seems impossible, and because we are already too used to the fast speed. And when our consciousness, our mind runs at fast speed, pursuing, and when you go into a spiritual life and you want to practice, then your mind, it flies fast like the bees flying out of their beehives, and you cannot slow it down in order to enjoy your life. Before you sit, you already want to stand up. Before you stand up, you already want to walk. And so this is something natural that happens. Before you live, you already want to die. So this is and it makes sense, because you cannot slow down life if you are used to the speed. And it's true in all other arenas, areas, and it has harmful effects. For example, we want that we have a long life, and yet we want our life to pass by very quickly. We want a day to pass by so that you can catch the new day. and yet you want your life to be long and to live, to grow old. This is contradictory, and yet you want happiness to last for a long time, and at the same time you want that this life doesn't give us enough conditions, but we keep pursuing the happiness in front of us. So whatever you wish is already a contradiction from within, and it divides your mind. It causes uneasiness, disturbance. So when you look at a general view, you see that we live in a world that all values are reset with, and if you don't practice, you think this is just natural because the society is pushing you. The rhythm of life is pushing in such a fast speed like that, and you look at the cell phone, you can see it's faster and faster, and there's more information. And before you run out of the apps, 11, 12, and now you already have iPhone 14. And so each kind of gadget like that, used like that, it gives you apps that you can update, vast information, and you don't have enough time for that. And yet the wealth of information is so vast and more each day. And so in order to live a life with quality, perhaps we need to do something very natural, is that to refuse to join in so many things that are there for us. It's difficult for us to refuse because we are living in society that is spinning like that. You live in the heart of life of the society, so the rhythm is like a flood, and if you don't go in the same direction, then you are on the side. Fortunately, we come to a spiritual life and we learn to slow down. However, the push of society has caused you to be used to that speed. So when you live in a monastery for like a few days, a month, 3 months, perhaps with that's such of a long time, can you really touch the practice, slow down your life, and enjoy the beauty of life? But what will happen is that, except when you ordain or you practice 3 months with all the hard work and you go back to society, then the speed of society is so strong it will sweep you away. And we already have the habit of being swept away like that. Then we ask ourselves, in the last years of my life, what have I done? What have I really experienced? And if we answer honestly, is that we just learn a lesson to run after, to benefit, to live our whole life, and then we die. So we live in order to die, fast or slow. We live so that we can die. And seems that we haven't learned anything else. And so that's why each year when we have the 3-month retreat, I am very happy to see many people coming to stay with us, to practice with the monks and the nuns. And how fortunate that after each rain retreat, there are some friends who remain behind. This is the fortune of the monastery, but also of those of you who choose to stay. Because after 3 months of staying in the monastery, you go back to society, you will see that society doesn't allow you to slow down and live like you do in the monastery, and so it causes this vicious cycle all over again. And then next year, when we have the rain retreat, you throw your corpse in the monastery for 3 months before you get used to being, slowing down. Then you have to go back to that very fast speed life. And so life pass by very fast, and death comes very quickly. So it seems that in our whole life we do only one thing, is that we should change the air for a little bit, just for fun, but we haven't really reached anywhere. And so each year, at the end of each rain retreat, I feel happy to see people coming. And then on the last day, when we say goodbye, I feel a bit sad inside, because I see that those of you who have had a chance to stay with the monastics, and then you go back to the city, very few people are able to maintain the practice. This is the truth. So what's even more real is that, dear Sangha, not only we have to confront with the rhythm of life in society that pushes us so quickly and what we have to worry, but that's only a part of it. But the habit, the way we live is not just one lifetime, but from our ancestors. So it's always pushing us, urging us to run forward. Very few of us can actually settle in one place to be pleased with our life, especially in the Western society. A family, a roof, under the one roof, and working at a place. So in the developed country, very few people, since they start their first job, until when they cannot work anymore, very few people actually work at one place. And very few Americans ever live in one house. If we have a chance, we will sell the house to buy a better house, or we'll sell that house to buy a vehicle to travel. So we say this is a very normal culture in developed countries, but we look more deeply than we see. We ask why. It's our mind is never pleased with what we have. It's looking at the things that it doesn't have, and it desire those. The first reason is that our sentiment never stops in one place. It changes. It's in constant flux and change. So even when we meet each other, let's say use the Asian language, is even if we have this the thunder of love that strike us, and we promise to live with each other our whole life, but with certainty, within 3 months. 3 months of the happiness from the beginning, that's 3 months, and then there's a change. And when this change takes place, people don't dare to look at, or they intentionally avoid, or they try to maintain it, but it has faded after the wedding. It has already faded, let alone after 3 months, after this honeymoon period. So this seems like a reality in this life. It's just we don't want to talk about it. In the 8th, 9th century, there was a Japanese Zen master who said something that I think very worthy of our learning. There's one thing that fades, that nobody can see, because it's still fresh on the appearance, and that is the heart of the human. So I'll repeat. there's the thing that fades that nobody can observe or see because its appearance is still fresh. And this flower without its summit, and that is the heart of the human being. Of course, in our heart, it's never fades because there's the blood circulation. It always looks red from the moment we come to life until before we die. But the Zen master is talking about the heart of our emotions and sentiment because it changes every moment. So even though if we make the vow to each other for our whole lifetime, once we own each other, then behind that promise of loyalty, and there's always a change, and we don't dare to look at it or to speak about it. And based on ethics, then it seems it's not right. Because living like that, when we don't have love, we don't have loyalty, it seems not right. But this is true for the humans' emotions because humans' emotions is most fragile and most changeable, and we love each other just 5-10 years, and if we say just one thing that is rough or harsh, and it can cause a wound that we cannot forgive. So it changes that fast. From a change of a normal consciousness to the flux of life, that is, we always seek something new. That is just a natural tendency in human beings. And so it's not just society that changes, not only the speed of life that is fast, that we are flocked in the movement, the rhythm of life, but it's our own emotions and sentiment that are always changing. I speak a bit fast, so I don't know if the translator can catch up. I hope. So I'll just stop and drink so I can readjust the speed. Can you hear clearly? The second issue that is also relatable to what I was sharing earlier, our life happiness doesn't come from, having enough the material luxury. We can have beautiful home, beautiful car, we can have a lot of money, we can live in a beautiful place. And yet happiness, it comes from our own mind, our capacity to enjoy what's there. And if you look clearly, it seems that our whole life we keep looking for happiness. We keep looking for peace. We keep looking for satisfaction, for example. We leave the city, we go to the monastery to stay here for 3 months so you can seek peace, you can seek happiness so that you can have worthwhile moments in your life. Perhaps it's worthwhile in 3 months to equip yourself to have a healthy mind so that you have a lot of joy so you can go back to life the rest of the 9 months, and then you get eroded that happiness, then you crawl to the monastery for another 3 months to equip yourself a healthy life, then you go down the mountain again, so you keep doing that. So this is the first situation. You go to the mountain to find happiness. And then there are other people who are even more reckless. They even ordain. That's being very brave and reckless. I think becoming a monastic is one of the most reckless thing. Because at home, you only endure only your parents or your siblings, and that's already difficult. If you live in a family, if you have a spouse or a partner, you endure only one. And when you go to the monastery, how many people do you have to endure? You have 20 monks. Then you have to endure the 20 monks who are different from you, who speak, who eat, who behave different. And yet I feel that it's actually quite lovely to endure these 20 monks. But when you you throw yourself in the sister's hamlet. I don't dare to say because it's not my place and I don't want to cause any kind of internal formation. But from this, and then you think it's so difficult to have to endure, one elderly woman, that's difficult. And if you have to endure 20 elderly women, that's even more difficult. I was very afraid of my mother. That's why I became a monk. There was no idealism for me, is the truth. I was very afraid of my mother. When I was a monk, I became a monk. Sometimes I meet a lay woman, and it makes very difficult when I have to bear those who are so, fickle or difficult. I was afraid of my mother. I was afraid of my grandmother, and I meet that many grandmothers, mothers. So that's life. So I want to say here, so to become a monastic is one of the most adventurous, reckless thing that we do. But I'm just saying. But with a very passionate heart, and you feel, you see in this life living, you only do one thing, it's just struggling and confronting and dealing with things. So you're making money. Making money is a happiness, but happiness is not making money. Happiness comes because you have a lot of money to spend. But life, it seems you just live to make money so that you can spend, so that you can feel happy. But that happiness is so fleeting. It cannot be that we live in this life to make money so we can spend money. So we find some satisfaction in the sensual pleasure, and then we feel cloyed, tired of it, and then we look for more, and then we feel cloyed, and then we look for more. So is that our whole life? We just wait for death to come. So it seems that life is tasteless, and that's why there are those of us to leave the worldly life to go to the monastery and throw everything away so that we can find true happiness. But will happen. But we discover that the happiness that we throw ourselves in the monastery, it can also fade, because happiness is a kind a thing that is based on feelings. Like I said, there is one thing that fades that nobody can see, because the color still looks fresh on the outer appearance. And so that is the heart of the human being. So there's no happiness, or there's no sentiment that cannot fade. Even if that's the love of the parents, love of a partner, the love that you may have with the monastery, with your teacher, with your brothers and sisters, because the nature of an emotion is changeable. And so when we become monastics, as we grow older, we can see, we can get bored, we can get tired, we can feel we cannot stay on. So when we become a monastic, in order to seek happiness, then it can also fade and it can fall apart, because in this life, everybody you meet, there are just ordinary human being, even though that's a monk or a nun speaking, using loving speech. But when you live with them for a long time, you will recognize that they're also human beings. And so this happiness can also be very temporary, and it can just falter. You lose the faith on the path. It can also take place, even though you see the advertisement. But if you live, you can lose your faith also. So if we say that we become monastics in order to be happy, then it's also true. It's only true in the beginning. But what happens is that uncertain heart that it fades, it changes very fast. So we change, and those people around us, they also change. So the foundation of our feelings, they come and go, and they are born and then they die. It's there and it's not. They are there and they are not there anymore. And so we get bored. We get disappointed. That is why, dear community, in the beginning we can come to the practice with our emotions, with our desire to be happy. But once we practice, then we have to go forward. That's our obligation. We need to do in order to take deep roots on the path so that we can practice long term. So what we can overcome the door of emotion, then you have to give rise to deep insights. So only then you can exist, you can last in the monastic life, in your practice. If you do not develop insights, understanding, then even if you've been on the path for 20 years, you cannot maintain the strength of your mind, the strength of your path. People just live for the day to pass, because they dare not to go back to the world, to be swept away by society anymore, to squeeze off your energy. So you just live in the spiritual life, but your inner strength is zero. And so you cannot, if you do not develop the energy of insights of understanding, if you do not pass the emotions, then you cannot reach the peak of those who can decide their lives, who can overcome the challenges and difficulties in society, in the monastic life. The difficulties when you are a monastic, you cannot overcome if you do not have insights, wisdom. So this is something natural. And what I want to say here is that you recognize that all emotions and all joys and happiness, even though if they are present in your practice life, it's just like a step that you step up. Is only then you can step up on the second and the third step in order to see your own mind, your thoughts, your perceptions. On a normal level, you can see that your thoughts, your perceptions, your criticism, your judgments, they create the pride of a person who is knowledgeable, who is well-learned, but your understanding, your knowledge is just something practical so that you can survive. You have them, you obtain them so that you can survive, so that you can confront the situation of the fast life, to confront difficulties that come to you, or demands, requests when people come to you, when they ask. So it's a wonderful, skillful means so that you can survive, you can last. But it's not necessarily the final, ultimate foundation that you can obtain. And what we call insight, understanding, wisdom, it's not your thinking. It's not your thinking, your thoughts, or in another word, it's not your memories, not the information data that you have accumulated, that you have read, that you have memorized, you have learned, you imitate after your teacher's way of saying. That's not insight. It's only a collection, accumulation of rich knowledge. It's not very difficult from coming to the U.S. and you learn English, and you go to Europe, you learn French, and you go to Vietnam, you learn Vietnamese, you learn a language, you learn a culture. It's only something pragmatic for you to live, but it's not yet wisdom, true wisdom. Why? Because only there's a nerve that is disturbed in your brain, and you can forget everything that you know. And another thing is that the more people accumulate in knowledge, information, it creates these preconceptions. It creates this foundation that people criticize and judge others. So this is a kind of knowledge that causes attachment and extremism and judgment. And so this hurts us, harms us and others. I don't know if this is something, it is, can you understand this? Okay, I'd like to repeat this. With a normal consciousness, if you are not a practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner, you are not a student of anybody, you can accept everybody. Let's say they are Vietnamese people or they are Americans, and then our mind is comfortable to be close to anybody. But when you put yourself in a tradition, oh, I am a disciple of this Zen master or that teacher, then your mind, your sentiment will different. Oh, these are the people who are on my path. These are the people of the same teacher with me. Then they might say monastery, the other person is not. So then there's already that discrimination in our behavior, in our thinking, because we feel that we have been trained differently from others. So the limitation of our knowledge is that it puts a distance between us and others. And secondly, it causes us to be caught in our views and our knowledge, what we have picked up along the way. And thirdly, it causes our wisdom is not it's not open anymore. It feels, before we can feel the winter, we can feel pain when we see somebody who is sick, who's poor. But when our mind is dyed with different ideas, like of religion or whatever it is that is dyed with, and then it prevents you from really feeling the human's suffering or beauty. So knowledge is not wisdom, and certainly not the place that we should take roots in our practice. That is why tying ourselves, taking roots in our body, then we see that we just live day by day to make money, to spend money, and then wait to die. If we see ourselves are only emotions, and then you just live a fleeting life with these up and down emotions, and when you have happiness, you will have suffering. Happiness comes, then suffering is also coming in tandem like that. And then your life is also just fluctuates in love and hate, and worries and hesitation. And if you invest your mind, your capacity in accumulating knowledge so that you can enrich your knowledge, and then it also creates limitation when you go into a spiritual life. So if one who truly enters the life of practice, then you have to do one thing. You have to overcome these three layers. This body, the second layer is of the emotions, and then the third one is of knowledge. And if you understand this, then you come to a spiritual life. Then just to be aware of the four establishments of your way of being, like the body, what is the four establishments of mindfulness, then we can take root in that. To be aware of our in-breath and out-breath, we can already overcome our caught view that we are our body, the identification that we are this body or these emotions or this knowledge. Then we can really touch true happiness, and we can experience this no birth, no death nature right in us. If we cannot do this, then we practice just for fun. It's only leaving one environment to go to another environment, putting behind one form so that you can take on another form. So in life there needs these jumps, these changes, so you can feel there's some newness. But deep inside you are just the same. Your afflictions are still there. You can live in a monastery for 20 years, you smile, you think you are full of happiness, but your nature is still exactly the same. So look behind the scene to see how you are, how different you are. You're still full of jealousy, of suffering. And so that is why what we want to say here to conclude all these three parts is that the life of a practitioner, you have to see very clearly that this practice, it brings you to go through stages that you do not identify yourself with this body. You do not identify yourself with your emotions, your thoughts, and do not identify yourself with your thoughts. And so these are the very important steps that you can overcome and go into the true practice.
Mà trở thành cái con người bất tử nơi con người sinh diệt, thì đây là cái bước rất là quan trọng để chúng ta thấu đạt và đi vào công phu hành trì.
It is the bell to mark the end of the talk. Not yet. I can still have 10 more minutes, right? Dear community, I just presented to you a way of looking, an outlook that we can reflect upon our practice and our attachment. And if we stop here, then the Buddha Dharma cannot save you yet. So the last 10 minutes, I'll present the method of practice. The truth is that in the practice centers, Zen centers existing in the U.S., these Zen centers that exist in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, etc. Burma, they agree in one way of guidance. That's the southern tradition, but the northern tradition it's absent of this way of practice. But in the southern tradition, they continue to maintain the teaching of the Buddha. They don't teach you anything, and they don't use any kind of high reasoning. They don't use psychology, social psychology to explain, but they only teach you. You come here, you sit still, you look at your in-breath and your out-breath. It sounds so simple, and yet when you look at the in-breath and the out-breath, and the first thing that has to take place is that you have to identify, you have to become one with your body in order to see the in-breath and the out-breath. And why is that? Why is that when you look at the breath, then the body and mind have to be one? Because if the mind is not here, and then the mind cannot look at the in-breath and the out-breath. But this practice is not that simple. It does not stop there. This practice gives us to explore the depth of our consciousness, because once you can look at your in-breath and out-breath, then you can also see the coming and going of your sadness, your sorrow, your happiness. And then once you are able to see your coming and going of your emotions, then you can also see your thoughts and perceptions coming and going. So it seems contradictory, and yet it's not contradictory at all. Is that the first thing you need to do? Is that body and mind have to be present in one place in order to look at the in-breath and out-breath, to see the coming and going of emotions and of thoughts. And so at the same time, we also see that the person who is looking at the coming and going of the breath, of the emotions, and of the thoughts, that's not the same the person. You are in your body, and yet you are not the person in the body. And when I listen to the teachers talking about this, and he said that you come to the practice and you think, oh, my mind is in confusion, it's running back and forth. How can I catch it and stop it? How can I quiet it? This is wrong. The natural thing is that you have used your nervous system, the capacity to think, in order to live, to survive in this life. So this progress has taken place for millions of years. Through evolution, we can understand this. Just look at your cell phone. At first, it's very slow, and now it's like the 13th, 14th generation, and you just need to push the button, and it already gives rise to signals. So it took a while to develop like that. So our nervous system has also gone through that evolution. So in order to have this, sharp thinking, it has gone through millions of years of revolution. So when you come to the practice, you think, oh, my thinking is wrong. So then it's not logical. If you deny this sharp capacity that helped you to survive, you denied it, so it's not right. So this teacher taught that it's like you are caught in traffic. And if you are sitting in the car, then you can be very upset. You can be angry. You can be so irritated. And if this anger, you cannot control it. You can actually get the gun and shoot people, because anger has no limit. It has no stop. But at that point, if you are sitting on like a balloon and you watch the car, then what will happen? You can enjoy the stream of cars moving slowly forward. You can enjoy the mountains. You can enjoy the ocean. You can breathe, enjoy the fresh air. So if you can do one thing in your practice, is that you are both the one in your body watching your breath, and at the same time you are not attached to this body or this breath, then the uneasiness, the anger will not disturb you. It takes place and it takes place, but you are not disturbed by it. A practitioner only needs to watch it. Then you don't need to do anything. It's like you're sitting in this air balloon that watching the stream of cars, or the happiness or sadness, worries, and they run through. And if you can just watch them, then what will take place? It's just like the person who is sitting on the air in the air balloon looking at life. Then you can enjoy the beauty. There's nothing frightening about it. And if you look at the stream of your consciousness, it runs like a market like that. Then, and you do not identify yourself with the stream, then what will happen? Then you can enjoy the stream of thoughts that is running. It goes back and forth, but nothing happens to you. So it's not like you don't practice in order to eliminate this love or hate, or all you do is, the wonderful thing you do is that you just observe what's coming and what's going from this kind of work, this kind of career practice. You see that the first step coming to the practice, then the body and mind become one, so that you can observe each in-breath and each out-breath. But this you have to take on the second step, is that you have to be the person who can observe the in-breath and the out-breath. You can observe the birth and death of your emotions and your thoughts. And you do just one thing, is that you are the witness of what's taking place. Then the sadness, worries, irritation, depression, despair, all their nature change is in constant flux, and they will come and then they will go. And if love fades, then there is no other emotion like worries, like despair, depression, or suffering. Then nothing will not fade. And so when we can understand this and enter this practice in this manner, then you can take roots very deeply in the practice, in the spiritual life. Otherwise, 3 months pass, 10 years pass after your practice, and yet they have nothing to do with your practice, and you still suffer, you still get angry, you still feel sad, and then your mind is just drowned in these emotions and thoughts and perceptions. And the end, that's enough. It's already 11, right on time. There's no other greater happiness. Just speak short enough. And early, people are happy, you're happy. Thank you for being here with us. Regretfully, I brought this sutra book, but I haven't had a chance to open it and tell you stories about it. But then I would not end until this afternoon. But you are lucky I didn't open this book. This is the truth. I'm not threatening you, because it's a very thick sutra book with great stories. Okay, let us listen to the sounds of the bell.